in at about 2:26 today, so be sure that you tune in for that. Right now, let me get to my guest. He is the president of the St. Louis Board of Aldermen, Mr. Lewis Reed. And Lewis, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Mark. How you doing?
Great to see you. I appreciate that. Just pull that mic up a little bit closer to you there. There you go.
There we go.
I know you got that big booming voice. We're going to hear you anyway. Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Good. I wondered when I saw this bill. I saw the report on Channel 2 this morning about it. I heard Jamie talking about it a little bit. Where do you stand on this? Because I know the city relaxed its laws regarding fines for marijuana possession. Last fall sometime?
Yeah, we 2 to 3 years ago, we took the first pass of changing what would happen in case someone got caught with marijuana, right?
Right.
So we made it a municipal violation. So
it was like a traffic fine, in other words, if you get busted, right?
Yes, but the fines were anywhere from $100 to $500 plus court costs.
Okay.
And we just introduced a bill and passed it probably 3 weeks ago that took the next step of the decriminalization effort for marijuana in the city of St. Louis. So, but Board Bill 180, the board bill that will be brought up tonight, I think for the most part it seems like it's being reported wrong because they're calling it a decriminalization bill. But it's not a decriminalization bill. It's a legalization bill, which we do not have the power to do in the city of St. Louis. It has to happen from the state. The primary sponsor of the bill has been putting it out as a decriminalization bill, which is why it really doesn't have any support at the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, all right.
Because if you read the things within the bill, it would limit what employers can do in terms of being able to test, to do drug testing. Employers have been very outspoken and said that would impact their insurance, right? So,
sure.
It was taken to court in Colorado and found to be unconstitutional. Municipality, we can't impose that on a privately held business. It would.
Before we get off that subject for a moment, I mean, there was a little bit of softening of that if somebody was in a job that required, I don't know, some special skills that a business might be able to restrict that, but in general they wouldn't under this ordinance, correct?
Yeah, they would not under this ordinance.
Okay.
The way it's currently written, and that's just one of the issues. There's a whole litany of issues within this bill itself, which is why it just doesn't have support at the Board of Aldermen.
It would potentially hold police in some sort of trouble if they arrested somebody who had maybe less than 2 ounces of marijuana with them and were found to be somehow violating this ordinance, correct?
Absolutely. They would be removed from the job. If an elected official authorized any use of funds, city resources, to police marijuana at all, they would have to leave office, and there's nothing in the bill that says how that would happen or if that would even be constitutional, according to our local ordinances. There's just so many issues within this bill but it continues to be put out wrong. It continues to be advertised as a decriminalization bill. But it's not. It's a legalization bill. And here's the biggest issue that most people are having with this bill that really understand it and that have really been working on this issue. Cities like, Denver, Colorado, right? What they've done, they've created a legal alternative to the illegal system, right? What this bill does, it says, let the illegal system continue to prosper. Matter of fact, let's take all restrictions off of the illegal system and let it operate without any monitoring, right? So if you think about the billions of dollars that went through the system in Denver, Colorado, and you look at the city of St. Louis, can you imagine what would happen to our crime rate in the city of St. Louis if we said, you know what, we're going to just let the illegal system happen. So all of the gangs and folks like that, they now will control. I mean, imagine the street value of an area if indeed, you could run $1 million, close to $1 billion worth of drugs through it unchecked.
And in Colorado, as you mentioned, by legalizing it, they are bringing in a lot of tax revenue in that state from that industry. None of that would happen here in the event that something like this went through. I know these bills can be modified in committee. Are you worried that some version of it, I mean, if it gets watered down, might actually get voted out of committee or not?
I cannot imagine that this bill in any form is going to make it out of the board, and only because there's such a large opposition. I mean, all but maybe 5 aldermen, all the rest of them, they are diametrically opposed to it, from what I've heard, because of what it'll do. Here, imagine, if you will, if you live in a neighborhood that has a lot, or a community that has a lot of challenges, like a lot of the neighborhoods north of Del Mar, right?
Okay.
There's been a lot of crime. There's illegal drug sales and all that stuff, right? And a bill is being introduced that would take away your ability to even begin to address some of the issues of crime and safety within your neighborhood, right? And the bill was introduced under the idea that the police officers are spending all their time pulling people over for low-level drug offenses, and that's what they're burning their time for, and they can use their time doing some other thing, right? And when you take a look at the actual records, right now in the city jail, out of like 1,500 people or something like 5 of them were there for marijuana possession. So it's not overwhelmingly. The police department has been very clear that that's not what they're spending their time doing.
And it's interesting because the writer of this, the sponsor of it, was Megan Green. But part of the argument that she makes in here is that it would reduce people's exposure to opiates. And I mean, it makes a lot of really far-fetched ideas on why this is a good idea. But the reason I bring that up is that I think people need to understand that this young lady, and I don't know Megan Green personally, is running for the Board of Aldermen president, isn't she?
Yes, and
she's a candidate for that.
Yes, and you'll see more bills like this because but the thing that people need to remember is, it's so important to read them and understand them, opposed to just, they pick up the press headline and they'll put it out as one thing. But this bill, again, would be detrimental to neighborhoods, especially some communities across the city of St. Louis that struggle just to try to make ends meet. Okay, let's think this thing through for a second. So a lot of parents right now are fighting and struggling to try to keep their kids in school. And they're trying to keep them off of the streets, right? And the risk reward system is out of balance right now. But can you imagine what type of a draw it would be for that child if indeed that kid, who would look like he's 18 or 21, would be given a
free pass.
2 ounces of marijuana by a drug dealer and says, okay, you need to sell this. When you sell this $600 worth, I'm going to give you another $200. You sell another 2 ounces. You sell that $600 worth. But guess what? As part of that toolkit, you don't just get the marijuana. You get the marijuana. You get the pistol. You get the opioids. You get all of it, right? And the value of the areas that would be controlled by these drug dealers would just be immense. And again, that's why it's so important to understand that it's what cities are doing. They're replacing the illegal system with a legal alternative. What this bill does is it says, let's just take all the handcuffs off of the illegal system and turn a blind eye. And as a matter of fact, if a police officer looks at it, or if an elected official or any city official engages in it, they will be removed from office or fired.
I suspect this issue is going to be on a statewide ballot at some point, if not this November, probably in the coming years. I'm personally opposed to the idea. How do you feel about it? I think it would be detrimental to our community.
Yeah, I think I support the legalization of marijuana. Right. What I do not support is a bill like this that says, okay, the illegal system. Let's now allow the illegal system to take in $1 billion unchecked in our city and hope to God everything's going to be okay.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it doesn't have much of a chance tonight. I was a little worried about that. You guys have a special election today, right, in Ward 8?
Yes, there's a special election in Ward 8. So if people live in Ward 8, it's really important to get out and vote today.
Yeah, good. Well, you got anything else big going on at the board right now? What are you working on?
No, obviously the airport privatization.
Right, that's true.
To come back
yeah. That's a whole nother segment.
That is a big segment, yeah.
Are you in support of that privatization or not?
Well, I'd like to sit and talk with you about it. There's some moving parts in my office. We're working through it now. We're trying to make heads or tails of all of it. Again, it's a big subject. It's not something that I just...
and the debate over parking, because I've had Jeffrey Boyd in here, and I know that he's brought a suit to try to get some of that control back to the board. Are you in support of that or not?
I'm absolutely in support of that. This is not anything that's difficult, right? It's just not that difficult, right? We're the city, every taxpayer, there have been multiple tax increases. People now have to pay more for trash and everything else. A lot of that's because the city cannot get access to its resources, to the revenue that's due to the city from the taxpayers and other revenue streams. The parking meters, right? The city gets very little money back from that after it flows through, the treasurer's office. And after the treasurer takes as much as she wants to off the top of it to plug into her emergency reserve fund. The city has roughly $6 million in its entire emergency reserve fund, the entire city. The treasurer's department by itself has, pushing $20 million in the emergency reserve fund. We need our money back. We just say it's just that simple. It's not about personalities or anything else. I would hope that the treasurer would say, okay, yes, let me understand that it's not a personality issue between myself and Jeffrey Boyd, and Jeffrey needs to understand the same thing. But at the end of the day, it's so important that we receive the revenue that we should be getting back to the city so that we can afford, things like public safety, infrastructure improvements, and everything else that we need in our city. Very good.
That is Lewis Reed, who's, of course, president of the Board of Aldermen in the city. I know you got a meeting you got to get to here, so I'm going to let you go. But thanks so much for giving us some thoughts on this.
All right, thank you.
And we'll have you back in and we'll talk about airport privatization. How about that?
Perfect.
Very good. Lewis, thank you so much. Quick break. I'll get to your phone calls on this issue. Tell me what you think about it. 314-969-9797.
On FM News Talk 97.1, 98.7, AM 1490, and 97.1talk.com.